Good afternoon, well, almost afternoon, sports fans, high school sports fans. A lot of football action last night, and yes, I was at the game last night, and let's just say the team I saw was a very dominant team. But I think there's a team that a lot of you don't know about. If you ever get a chance to check out eight-man football, the young man y'all see on my screen, his team put on, I would say, just as a dominating of a performance last night on the heels of a 49-0 victory. Where am I going to? Well, the train ride is picking up none other than my good friend who is a part of history. His school was involved in the highest scoring football game, I believe, in all of high school. That not just state of Kansas, that's throughout. He was in a game where they put up NBA basketball numbers. Both teams scored over 100 points. We're talking about a guy I've become friends with over the years by the name of Coach Matthew Fowler, who coaches the Oswego Indians, if I'm correct. Coach, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Anthony. It's always good to be on the train, man.
You're doing fine. And after a 49-0 victory, it makes for a good night's sleep, I'm pretty sure. Uh, Pretty sure you told your players enjoy the victory, but be ready to work when it's time to work because you don't have so much time to enjoy it. And then it's back to the grinding board. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we played really well last night. We played West Elk, who is a very good football program, very good tradition. They had actually beat us. Uh, that we had been on a four-game skid to them. They had beat us 4 years in a row. They had a really good senior class that just graduated last year, so much younger team this year, and but still, it's West Elk. It's that program. It's tradition. We played them at their place, and we played. I think we played our best football of the season to this point. So we played really well defensively. Obviously, anytime, like you mentioned, eight-man football, the scores can get really high. Anytime you can hold your opponent scoreless, and we've done that the last 2 weeks now uh, with Crest and with Colony Crest and West Elk. Anytime you can hold your opponent to zero, that's a major feat because usually uh, one or two missed tackles can mean points on the board.
Now, in conversing with you, I've had a chance to look on Max Preps and pick out a few players that I want to talk about. And it appears that you have a couple of brothers on your team, the Williamson brothers,
Hmm.
but one in particular that caught my attention. Uh, and I hope Max Preps is very accurate with their uh, statistics, but Dimitri Williamson, I'm going to assume that he's your running back. And if I'm looking at the stats correct, is that 157 yards a game rushing for him?
Yeah, yeah. Dimitri is an outstanding talent. Yep. Um,
And
he's a sophomore this year, and last year as a freshman, he was put into a good situation for him to kind of learn and develop because we had a really good senior running back, Josh Hutchinson, and Dimitri. As a freshman, kind of came in and split time. He was so dynamic, we had to have him on the field, but he kind of Josh kind of took him under his wing, and he had some good opportunities to learn from him, and man, he's just really flourished. He's very elusive in the open field. He's very fast. He's got a whole nother gear. So, uh, Anthony, I'm glad he's just a sophomore because he's a lot of fun right now, and he's only going to get better and better. And then his younger brother Deontay is a freshman this year, and he's playing really well also, especially defensively. He starts for us on defense, and then we get him in on offense and get him some touches occasionally as well.
And how were you able to get both those young men? Because, and I'm gonna say that's probably a once in a lifetime talent that comes through, right? I mean, I know you've
Yeah.
had some talented players, but of that magnitude, when you see, like I said, that stood out, 157 yards, and that lets me know that you firmly believe in the running game, and you got someone that can tote the rock. But look like you have two young brothers there, and like I said, I assume they're both brothers. One Dimitri,
Mhm.
the other one Deontay. How did they come across? How did them and Oswego connect?
Huh. Well, it's quite a story actually. So they were foster kids that were adopted by a great family here in town, uh, Tommy and Tanya Williamson. They came to us when they came to us. Dimitri was in sixth grade. Deontay was in fifth grade, and then they have another younger brother, Deadrian, that is in eighth grade this year, but he was in fourth grade. So they're all three 1 year behind each other in school. So Deadrian's out there, doing very well on the junior high football team. Our junior high team is also undefeated. So they came to us through the foster care system, and then were adopted by a loving family. And they're flourishing in the community and in the school, not just in sports, obviously in sports, but also, you know, uh, in school, and they are much loved in this community, and I think it's been tremendous for them, and obviously for our school as well.
That that's a great story right there. That's a great storyline, and I know you're very glad, fortunate, and blessed to have them on your team. And of course, you have some other com- components to your team. Now, you start the season with a loss to Marmottan Valley, and if I'm correct, that's the same school y'all had that epic shootout with.
That is,
Lost
yeah,
that
we've
game
had
twenty-five
we
forty
we
four.
have yeah,
But
we have
since
a lot of
then,
history
y'all
with
put
them.
up 65-18 over St. Paul, 45-0 over, I believe, yeah, Colony Crest. And then, of course, last night, y'all shut out West Elk 49-0. So you're pitching two shutouts in a row. And it's easy to look at the offensive output, but let's talk about the defense because it takes a special defense to pitch two shutouts in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things too about, and we've talked about this some in the past, but even eight-man football, stats, like last night's game, eight-man football, if you get ahead by 45 points, the game has to go to halftime. But if you're up by 45 or more anytime, at half or after the half, then the game ends automatically. So like last night was a halftime game. The previous week against Colony Crest was one drive into the second half. So we had one series in the third quarter, which actually our JV offense was in there for that one, and then the week before the St. Paul game also ended early. So sometimes the stats can be deceiving a little bit too, in the fact that you can be dominant, and if you're dominant, you might not have that good of stats, because like last night we only ran 22 plays on offense. I think we had 19 rushes for 250 yards, something like that. And we were two of three passing for 26 yards, and both of those were both the completions were touchdown passes. So sometimes statistically things kind of get caught in the wash in eight man, because sometimes your games are not full games. But defensively, we came out, we set the tone early. We forced four turnovers, including the very first play of the game. We they ran an option play, and we were able to blow it up, and there was a fumble created immediately there. But In total, we had three forced fumbles that we recovered all of them, and then we had an interception as well, and we did not turn the ball over. So, very impressive defensive effort. I thought our defensive line in particular and our linebackers played well, but the secondary was there also. So, very, very pleased with the defensive effort last night for sure.
All right. And looking at some of your defensive leaders, you have I've been trying to struggle with this name, Brandon Wari.
Yeah,
Chance
Braden
Hill. Of
Wary.
course, we see Dimitri. He's making his name on the stat sheet in the defense. But you got Braden leading the way with like 8.5 tackles a game. You got Chance at 7.3 tackles a game. So you got a senior, you have a junior, and you also have a sophomore. So you got pretty much all classes covered there, which means, and I don't want you to look ahead, but if you look ahead, that means you have a pretty good stout defense coming back from year to year. It's like you're developing, and when one class leaves, the next class steps up, and it's the experience that they gain. Like I said, without looking too far ahead, because you still have 4 more games left in the regular season. But how does it how does it feel to you for the outlook of the program that you are putting your stamp on? Because, like I say, 4 games ago, I know you like to get yourself in a good position and hopefully be that one to do what Cheney did to Andale a few years ago and be the one to derail that team called Axtell.
Well, you know, first of all, uh, as far as Axtell goes, such a tremendous program. They actually, we couldn't be the ones to derail them though because they're in the other division. So there's two classifications in 8 man, and they're in 8 man division too. So, so we don't we wouldn't play them in the playoffs. They're in a different classification and bracket, um, and they are definitely on a tear. We talk about them a lot. But as far as your first question with the uh, about our defensive depth and especially the spread of our starters, we have a good mix there. We have some seniors, we have some juniors, we have some sophomores, and even as we talked about earlier, Deontay Williamson is the freshman that starts at corner for us. Well, I've been very proud of Braden and Chance. There are two linebackers, and they've made a lot of the tackles. And as we talked about too, you got to be a great open field tackler. And linebackers in 8 man football, in particular, they have to be so well rounded because um, there's 8 guys on the field. There's the field is smaller, but still yet um, you have to cover a little bit more. You have a little bit more jurisdiction. You have a little bit more responsibility than you do in the 11 man game. It's almost like where in the 11 man game, a guy would have, one gap and one pass responsibility. It's almost like a guy has 1.5 jobs instead of just one because you got to cover a little bit more territory. And so those two guys have been playing well. And of course, they've been benefited by our defensive line who's been playing well because the defensive line swallows up some blocks, which allows those guys to make those plays.
And in saying that, around here, and I have this question for you, and I'm pretty sure you'll give me a concrete answer on this because in 8 man, we see a lot of one sided scores. And we know that also in 8 man, they have what's called a mercy rule. And I know you've been on both sides of those scores.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's one of those deals where, some people can holler, well, the score's still one sided. Where's the sportsmanship? And I'm like, well, how do you tell your players, you know, hold off, don't score? You really don't tell them that. You tell them keep playing. Seen the college football game. You probably saw that same game a few weeks ago. Uh, it was Lincoln University and Idaho State, I believe. The score was 9-0, and in the second half, instead of playing 15-minute quarters, they played 8-minute quarters. Well, here in the Wichita area, of course, we know Andover beat El Dorado 104-0, and I'm pretty sure some people are saying that's not right, that's not fair. And my thinking is this: if they have a mercy rule in 8 man, the rules committee should get together and say maybe there should be a mercy rule in 11 man. Now I know when the score is out of reach, they go to a running clock. But if it works for 8 man, it seems like there's no one complaining about the mercy rule. Don't you think it should also be instituted in the 11 man game?
That's a great point that you bring up. And I would say this. First of all, one of the things that I love 8-man football, and I grew up in Missouri, and I go back and I watch my high school team, Lockwood, Missouri, play sometimes when they might be deeper in the playoffs than us. One of the things I realized a couple of years ago, though, was that Missouri 8-man football does not have the mercy rule. They do a running clock as well as like what you talked about with the 11-man level here, and some of their scores get really out of control. At schools our size, one of the biggest things is that a lot of times, especially you get down into 8-man division two, you might have a team that only suits up, 10 to 12 players. And so for them to be able to survive that game and get out of there is a big deal. And the mercy rule, I think, is helpful for both sides in terms of injury and then, of course, morale as well. When you asked about how do you maintain a sportsmanship, well, there's ways to manage both sides of that. When you're getting 45, that's what we call it, 45, the mercy rule. If you're getting 45, there's a way that you handle that. You keep fighting, you try to get some first downs, you try to keep playing. When you're on the winning side of it, though, I feel like you have a little bit more control. And usually the goal when there's a very lopsided score is that you don't score any more than necessary to 45 them. So the way I've typically done it in the past, like so last night, for example, we reached the margin in the first half. It was 49-0, and I think there was still maybe 5 minutes to go in the first half. So we were able to stop them defensively, and I put the JV offense in. And the JV offense, some of that's good experience for them too. We have JV games on Monday nights, but sometimes 8-man football, not everybody can field a JV team. So those guys need some experience too. So we moved the ball down the field. We got down to about the 20-yard line, and we took a knee and ran the timeout. There was no need for us to put any more points on the board. The game was going to be over at the half. Um, if and I've been in situations where the other team has fumbled the ball repeatedly or something like that, and you score much quicker than you thought. In situations like that, if the margin is more than 45 for us, I try to put in the JV defense also and see, maybe that's our opponent's opportunity, to execute their offense against our JVs. Maybe they can put something on the board. So, so the whole thing is it's kind of like a chess match at that point, managing the game to try to keep it at 45 or 46 or whatever it may be without scoring unnecessarily on them. And sometimes that's hard to do. At the 11-man level, yeah, I mean, I think the way things are now with player safety and everything, when I first started coaching 8-man 17 years ago, which is the I've never coached 11-man, but I didn't like the mercy rule when I first started because I was on the wrong end of it a lot. And I was like, man, I just want to keep playing. But as I've matured and looked at it and been on both ends, I see how it benefits both sides because there have been kids, I'm sure, that have been injured in situations where they could have had them in the next couple of games, and those might have been more competitive games for that team. And they lose kids when the score's out of control. So, that's obviously something you want to avoid. Not all teams have a JV that they can put in. So, I like the mercy rule. I think every 8-man, 6-man state should adopt it. And I think it should be considered for the 11-man game too. Maybe not exactly the same way. Maybe they modify it. Maybe they make it a little bigger gap or something. I don't know, whatever they want to do, but I do think it would benefit the game.
All right. My next question, and I'm gonna let you most likely could get back to watching that Notre Dame Arkansas game.
Well, it's
I'm
on in the background.
I'm
I'm
gonna take
also
I'm gonna
working
take
on
Arkansas in
football
that
film.
game, but but my next question for you, because like I said, as a coach during the football season, even though you get to sit back and watch Arkansas Notre Dame, there is no off days for you during the football season. So you enjoyed last night's win, but now your attention turns towards Central Burden. What can you expect from them? How do you game plan for them without giving your secrets? Because I don't want you to give nobody anything that they can use against you. So how do you plan for them? What do you expect to see from them?
Well, you bring up some good points. So yeah, I'm the Arkansas game is on in the background. I am a Razorback fan, as hard as it is to say sometimes. I saw a shirt for Arkansas last week after their last two games that they've dropped that said, "We almost always almost win." And I kind of feel like that's a fitting description. But at the same time, I'm watching film over here on my computer of Central Burden, so that's kind of on in the background. Central Burden is they've got a real young team. They're another proud program, that has had a lot of success over the years, and they got a lot of good young players. One in particular, I'd like to give a shout out to and highlight is their quarterback. He's a sophomore. His name's Trayton Haffenstein. I hope I'm saying that right. It might be Hoffenstein. But this kid, he's a 5'10", 195-pound sophomore quarterback for them, and they run a lot of option, and he's the engine that makes them go. Anytime you run any kind of option system, you're putting a lot of the decision making on the quarterback, who's basically the point guard. They like to spread you out and hit you with rhythm passing game, and then also and it complements their option game well. So they're definitely a handful to defend, and so hopefully we can possess the football and have long drives with our running game, and you know uh, keep the ball out of their hands, because they definitely have some playmakers, and they've been playing well defensively too. Last night they fell short to Northeast Arma, who is a very dynamic, deep ball team. They like to throw the deep ball up a lot, and they lost 26-20, and had their chances to win the game. So what I'm saying is it's impressive to be able to hold a team that has as many playmakers as Northeast does down the field. They lost the game, but they only gave up 26 points. I mean, I've been impressed with them, watching them on film.
Well, well stated, and you didn't give them nothing they can use against you. Whatever they want to find out, they'll have to watch game film, which I'm pretty sure that's what they'll do. But coach, I want to say thank you for joining the show. The video version of it, and of course it will be podcasted, and I will definitely send you the link to it. Once again, thank you. This has been a friendship dating back a few years now. I've gotten a little bit more grayer over the time. Total of 10 grandchildren, so that'll put some gray on you too. But it's always enjoyable having you on. And like I said, we will always do this in the future. And hey, you always have an open door invitation. Maybe one of these days we'll get you back on here again and have a few of the players on, just have a big old jamboree. Maybe after you guys hoist the state trophy. I mean, anything can happen. And the good thing is you're not on that same side with Axtell. So, but hey, who knows? Maybe you guys can face them one of these days and do to them what Cheney did to Andale. But I think all they did was fuel their fire. But on any given Friday night, it can happen. So I want to thank you. I'm gonna let you get disconnected. And before you leave, show off that shirt again. Let's show us that woo wee pig suey pride again. All righty. I
There you
really
go.
do. Thank you for that. All right, I'm gonna let you get disconnected here. We got more to go on this show here, as we got scoreboard show to give you as well too, all the way from Oswego, Kansas. And the way me and him got connected, like I say, he was in one of the highest scoring games in high school football history, 8 men or 11. Both teams shattered the century mark, and I had to get in touch with one of those coaches, and he was the one that was available, and we have been friends ever since. I even went through his town and met him. Uh, how that came about, I was a courier driver for a company called Omnicare. No, I'm not giving them a free plug. That's just who I work for. And one of my delivery stops happened to be in Oswego. It was on my route, and it just so happened I was working a Saturday, so I'm like, okay, I should be there around this time. Okay, I'm on my way, and we met at the KC store, and I got to meet some of his players. Just a real good, down to earth man, and like I say, I don't call everybody my friends, but I call him a friend. Very humble, and always when I say, "Hey, you want to join the show?" He's always ready. That's why he has an open door invitation. I know you heard me talking a lot about I went to the game last night. Yes. I didn't know which game I wanted to go to last night. Uh, because to me, there were some good games in the area to attend. Uh, Northwest Capon, and of course, we know those you've been keeping tabs. We know how that turned out. I'm pretty sure it was an exciting game to be in attendance to watch. Not so for the participants. That just all depends on what side you were rooting for. But nonetheless, an entertaining game with two legendary coaches in Weston Sharps and Steve Martin, who I'm pretty sure will go down at some point in the Kansas Hall of Fame or the Kansas Coaches Hall of Fame. Uh, both coaches are looking for that elusive state title. They have gotten a glimpse of it, they've tasted it, but they want it. And why not both of them get one? Because Capon is in 4A, still undefeated. And trust me, the rankings in high school football have been shaken. The foundation has been shaken in the rankings. Capon, I do believe, number one in 4A, knocked off number three, Wichita Northwest. Number two, Derby gets knocked off by number four, and these are in 6A, gets knocked off by Mays. And if I could circle back on Mays, I would say their turning point, and they are still riding that momentum, not to mention the off-season workout. Their momentum started to shift when they won the battle for Mays last year when they knocked off Mays South, who by all accounts were the supposed better team. I mean, when you stop and think about it, quarterback Tate McNew and wide receiver Landon Gatto, it started with them. That was a dynamic duo. I'm pretty sure they shattered some school records, if not some league records upon last year. Mays pulls off the upset last year, and that jump started their season. And now look at them, still undefeated. Knocks off Derby last night. But we're going to get in there because now what we are going to do, we are going to transition into the scoreboard show. That's right. We have a bevy of scores to get to you, and we are going to get those scores to you like right now. Sorry about all that extracurricular. And we're going to start in 6A with these scores, and we're going to work our way all the way down to six man. Like I said, I was at the game last night, Andale and Collegiate, because I was actually, believe it or not, some of y'all may laugh at me, but I was expecting a competitive game. By the time I get there, score is 16-0. And just as I get there, Sam Harp is crossing the goal line. And another unique thing that I noticed about Andale, they really don't kick extra points. They go for 2-point conversions. And based on what I saw last night, I don't have no percentage, but I do know the one field goal they tried, it was blocked. All their other conversions was 2-point conversions, and I don't think they ever got stopped on either one of them. So last night was a 100% night on 2-point conversions. So I'm gonna say for the year, if they're not batting 100, they're in the high 90 percentile of converting on 2-point conversions, and that just depends on if they kick field goals or not. Last night was something I'm like, what? They're going for two? They're going for two again? They're going, oh, now they're going for a field goal. Collegiate blocks it, but Collegiate did avoid the shutout. Uh, I shared a text message with Brandon Russell, who's on the coaching staff, another good friend of mine, because last year when they knocked off Cheney, word has it that he woke up and he was like, we're going to win today. He just had that feeling. I kind of had a feeling that it was going to be a very closely contested game because I knew that Collegiate has some good players at the skill positions if they could find a weakness, but I don't think nobody finds a weakness with Andale. You would probably have to find something that the players are superstitious about that gets them off their game mentally and use it against them. And even that, I don't think will slow them down. Which brings me to another topic because the classes have been reclassified. Some schools are going to be moving up a classification, some are going to be moving down a classification. And that all has to do with enrollment size. Well, Andale is a different beast. They will still be in 3A. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of OMG. Here we go again. We have to contend with Andale, a school that has what? I'll say somewhere between 300 to 400 students, and you got 100 of them trying out football. Andale, in my estimation, probably take on some teams in 4A, 5A, 6A. I'm here in Wichita, Kansas, and I can honestly say if you put them in the Greater Wichita Athletic League, and I know some of y'all are not going to like what I have to say, but all I could do is be truthful. They would probably be in the top three. Mark that. Mark my words. They would be in the top three in the G Wall. And I'm pretty sure they would give Northwest some fits. Capon, they are 4A school. And I say that hesitantly. They play in the G Wall. At best, they've been a 5A school. And they say this is all based on school enrollment size. I'm going to throw a name out at you. He's at a local radio station here in town called KGSO. His name is Doug Downs. And he made a valid point that it should be more about competition than school enrollment size. Because when I see them do the classifications, I'm like, well, why is this school in this division when they were just in the higher division, the higher classification just the other year? And now they're pretty much dominating that classification. It should be on the team's talent, competition. I'm pretty sure are a lot of schools, if they found out that Ando was in 5A, I'm using this as a hypothetical. I know Andale is the measuring stick in 3A, and Cheney was able to disrupt that run. Right now, Andale's on a 17-game winning streak, defending state champion in 3A. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of teams would be like See you later. Glad you're gone. Put them in 4A. Put them in 5A. Let's see how they do. I'm pretty sure some of those schools will say, "Where'd this team come from?" With Andel, it starts with the administration. Put faith in the guy that walks on the sideline, Dylan Schmidt, and I hope to someday have him on the show as well too. But let me go ahead and get into the scoreboard part, starting with 6A games for week number 4. Can you believe we are halfway through the season already? There were some games played on Thursday, I do believe. So in 6A, it looks like this. On Thursday night, Olathe South traveled to Shawnee Mission East and limped out with a 49-35 loss. Washburn Rural traveled to Blue Valley Northwest, and they were some very ungracious guests as they put a beating on Blue Valley Northwest by the score of 31-7. Now for Friday's games, the big game anticipated in Mays, Kansas. Perennial Power, Derby, 21, Mays, 42. Let me put some emphasis on this because Derby went in ranked number 2 in 6A. Mays ranked number 4. Number 4, Mays knocks off number 2, Derby, 42-21. Another game that featured legendary coaches. Coach Gary Guzman, who last week picked up his 200th victory, now counting 201. Brandon Clark, Derby. We know about those coaches. Those are legendary names around here in the state of Kansas. Respected names in the state of Kansas. Moving right along. So look for Mays to move up. I wouldn't be surprised with what else has transpired. I wouldn't be surprised to see the number 1 tag on Mays' name. Only thing I would ask is, would they be up to the task of handling that bullseye that will be on their back? Moving right along. In a nail biter, Topeka High playing host to Emporia comes away with the 1-point victory by the score of 13-12. Hayes doubles and then some on Garden City by the score of 48-20. Gardner Edgerton traveled to Olathe North, and let's just say it was not a pretty sight as they come away with a resounding victory by the score of 42-7. Great Bend came to Wichita and took on the Wichita North Redhawks. I just can't get used to saying that name. But I'm going to be nice today because there was nothing nice about this final score. Great Bend, 75, Wichita North, 8. And once again, I want to reference Doug Downs because North High is a school that at one time had some rich tradition, very competitive. Remember, I grew up around this. I grew up in this area. I know some of the talent that went through North. North was never no easy sell. When you played North, you had to bring your game. When you say North High, you say Barry Sanders. So my only question is, what's it going to take to turn this North football program around? Because I think the league will be in a better place once you wake up that sleeping giant, which is North High. But at least they're scoring points. They played a competitive game, I believe, last week against, I want to say West High, I believe it was. So they show that they do have a competitive spirit. And if nothing else, I would like to see them at least get one win this season. I'm just being honest. You never know what one win, that elusive win, can do for a program, for the confidence of those kids that will be coming back the following year. So if you're listening to me, see this video, this live stream, the podcast will be up. North High, I'm rooting for you to get that one win. Because you never know that one win will do. Moving right along. The number one team in Class 6A playing host to Junction City. This is the team that had Northwest on the ropes until Northwest put it all together last week. Junction City traveled to Manhattan and knocked out the number one team in 6A by the score of 28-14. Kansas City Sumner Academy went to Kansas City Wyandotte, boat raced them, 56-14. Liberal traveled to Dodge City in a very competitive game, come away with a 31-22 victory. Mays South was in a dog fight with Hayesville campus, but prevailed by the score of 34-26. Mill Valley doubled up on Lawrence by the score of 42-21. Olathe East traveled to Lawrence Free State and limped out with a 35-27 loss. Olathe North cruised past Shawnee Mission North. Wait a minute, let me get this right. No, Olathe West cruised past Shawnee Mission North by the score of 42-24. Shawnee Mission Northwest 28. Olathe Northwest 31. This is a lot of directions. So nobody should be getting lost. All right. Shawnee Mission East traveled across town to take on Shawnee Mission South, and Shawnee Mission South comes away with a 30-17 victory. Wichita East getting back on the winning side as they blanked Wichita West by the score of 57-0. And don't look now, there's another team at the top of the leaderboard in the City League / Greater Wichita Athletic League. Them Golden Buffaloes are on a stampede as they cruise past Wichita Heights by the score of 35-14. So hats off to the Wichita Southeast Golden Buffaloes, off to a 3-1 start. One of their best starts since I do believe, 2015 when they started off 4-0. So there's a stampede on the horizon, and it's called the Southeast Golden Buffaloes. Don't sleep on them. That is 6A. Now we switch our attention to 5A. Thursday's game looked like this. Lansing traveled to Topeka West and comes away with a 36-20 victory. If I'm correct, I have no score on the Andover Arc City game. Baser Linwood traveled to DeSoto and came away with a closely contested victory by the score of 42-38. Blue Valley traveled to St. James Academy. St. James comes away with a 32-29 victory. Blue Valley West 31, Blue Valley North 7. Fort Hays 15, Pittsburgh 22. And I already mentioned the Hayes Garden City game. How about Goddard traveling to Newton and derailed the regulars by the score of 36-17? Topeka Seaman boat races Kansas City Turner by the score of 56-6. No score on Kansas City Washington and Kansas City Central Missouri. Mill Valley traveled to Lawrence, walks away with a 42-21 victory. Salina Central 49, Goddard Eisenhower 20. Hutch got back on the winning trail after getting annihilated by Mays last week, and they rebounded well with a 35-13 victory over Salina South. Leavenworth hosting Shawnee Heights comes away with a 43-29 victory. St. Thomas Aquinas traveled into Blue Valley Southwest, no problem. 41-14 is the final score. And by the looks of this, a 1-0 score would suggest that there was a forfeiture in the KC Harmon Topeka Highland Park game. And Wichita South looking to pick up their first win. Well, they will have to try again next week as Bishop Carroll doubled them and then some by the score of 47-20. That is your 5A scoreboard. Now we move to 4A. Of course, we already gave you the Thursday game, which was Lansing and Topeka West. So now we move into the schedule because I see there are some scores on here that was also on the 5A look. So we can bypass those. I'm glad they put this at the top. Also want to let you know that these scores here I'm giving you is courtesy of the K-Preps website. K-Preps, thank you. Thank you for the information here. Appreciate it. Fielder went to Towanda Circle, comes away with 42-20 victory. Chanute falls to Nemaha Central by the score of 28-14. Rose Hill puts up a 78 spot on El Dorado. Final score 78-0. What's going on with El Dorado? I have to ask that question. They started their season against Andale, and Andale blanked them by the score 104-0. I don't know what the record is for a team going the longest without scoring points, but El Dorado has to be pretty darn close. This is their fourth straight game. We're halfway through the season, and they have yet to score a single point. So now I'm like I said with North, and I was being serious about North. I would like to see them get that one win. I would like to see El Dorado at least get a field goal because this, like I said, this is the fourth game and not a single point to show for. So, best of luck to El Dorado the rest of the season. Independence went into Coffeyville and comes away with a 38-0 victory. Wellington hosted Labette County. Wellington 25, Labette County 14. Lewisburg shuts out Bonner Springs 21-0. McPherson 46, Winfield 27. Augusta playing host to Mulvane gets. Let me rephrase that. Augusta did play host to Mulvane. Mulvane walks away with a 3-point victory by the score of 26-23. Eudora hosting Ottawa wins the game 35-21. Rock Creek travels to Abilene and walks away with a 28-14 victory. Spring Hill travels to Kansas City Piper 49-21. Rock Spring Hill. Tonganoxie travels to Paola and shuts them out on their home field by the score of 14-0. And in another game that was highly anticipated to be a big game, Connor Thatcher at the helm for Valley Center, looking to finally tame the Jaguars. However, Andover Central had different thoughts as they come away with 27-16 game. A game that was very intriguing, a game you knew would be a big game. You didn't know if it would be a high scoring game or if it would be a defensive battle. You had to figure that both these teams were going to be high octane offense because Northwest brings it. Capon also knows how to bring it. Game started off. Northwest at one point had a 28-0 lead in this game. final score is what matters most. It's Cape and Mount Carmel in overtime pulls off the comeback and the win by the score of 43-42. Now I understand that Northwest did suffer some injuries to key players, Augie Fast, and then his backup came in, John Michael Fountain. Heard he had an injury, but he was able to come back. However, I know Coach Steve Martin, he will never use any excuses, and I'm pretty sure he's going to use this to fuel his team that you have to close out games. When you have a team down, you pretty much have to put your foot on their throat. I know that's probably not terms that would be endearing to high school sports, but you have to be able to close those games out. Can't let a team off the hook, and especially a team that is coached by Western Sharks. Any Western Sharks team, they will play you to the clock strikes zero at the end of four. And Northwest found that out. And it's amazing how this plays out because when you look at how this plays out, Northwest was on the road, came away with a very key victory against Junction City. Junction City, in turn, turns around, travels to Manhattan, and I have a pretty good idea how far Junction City is from Manhattan. It's not that far, but it's still a travel. Goes into hostile territory. The number one team in 6A, the defending state champions, I do believe, and beats them on their home field. So that should let you know that nothing is given on Friday. You have to bring it. And if I'm correct, Northwest and Manhattan, they have a date with destiny against each other. So it will be interesting to see what both those teams learn from these losses moving forward and how it will prepare them for the playoffs. So that is your 5A, that's your 4A scoreboard. Now we turn our attention to 3A. No Thursday games. And of course, the game that I was in attendance at last night is right here at the top as Andale came to Wichita to take on Wichita Collegiate, a game I expected to be a more closely contested game. It was far from that. Like I said, when I got there, the score was 16-0. And at the time when I'm coming into the game, running across the goal line is I just mentioned his name earlier, Sam Hart, quarterback. And let me tell you what I came away from this game. Andale doesn't run a no huddle offense, but it may well be a no huddle offense. And the reason I say that is because when they break the huddle, all right, first thing I noticed, the wide receiver is already in his position when he comes out the huddle. The rest of the team, they run to the line of scrimmage, and I promise you, it may sound like a slight exaggeration, but I promise you, they're set and the ball snaps within a second. In other words, the defense has to be ready. Matter of fact, if I'm not giving away any secrets, the next team that Andale plays, not that I think it will give them any advantage or not, make sure your defense is set and ready because when Andover hits that line of scrimmage, that ball is firing out in Sam Harp's hand. Just as soon as they break the huddle and get set on the line, you have approximately a second, if not a half second. And this team is high octane. It's evident. They have scored what? 4 games, 288 points. And I believe their opponents have only scored 40 points, if that. Let that sink in. So once again, the final score coming from Wichita Collegiate. Andell 54, Wichita Collegiate 7. Iola hosting Anderson County comes away with a 32-27 victory. Baldwin traveled to Wellsville and they walk away with a 35-14 victory. Parsons playing host to the Lions of Baxter Springs, no problem, 34-14. No score on Bishop Ward and Hogan Prep out of Missouri. Prairie View boat races, Burlington 48-13. Clay Center races past Chapman 44-8. Cheney, no problem with Clearwater, comes away with 41-6 victory. Frontenac travels to Girard, comes away with 35-7 victory. In a close, low scoring game, Jefferson West 12, Hiawatha 7. Holcomb travels 17 miles from the Kansas Colorado border to take on Goodland, and I'm pretty sure it was a happy bus ride home as they all come away with 34-14 victory. Holton 40, Perry Lecompton 10. Hugoton traveled to Colby, and they were not nice. This is just unruly as they traveled to Colby and silenced the home crowd, walks away with a 63-18 victory. Concordia hosts Marysville and blanks them by the score of 7-0. Neodesha traveled to Columbus and they're traveling home happy with a 20-7 victory. Heston wasn't having none of that coming into our home field and beating us as they spanked Nickerson by the score of 55-12. Pratt, the Greenbacks out of Pratt, Kansas, went to Chaparral and shut them out on their home field by the score of 35-0. Smoky Valley came in to Wichita Trinity, which I'm going to make that one of my stops here before the season is over. And Wichita Trinity taking care of home field, coming away with a 36-16 victory to send the home crowd home happy. Scott City playing host to Ulysses. Their hometown folks are happy too as they win the game 44-7. And Pika Hayden, no problem with Wamego, coming away with a 42-6 victory. That rounds out 3A. Yes, sound like I'm talking a lot. A lot of scores to give you. And no commercial breaks either. If I was doing this on my regular podcast, I would take a break, pause it, start it right back up. But I'm giving it to you straight. So now we go to 2A. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you are enjoying the video stream. If you're watching this on twitch.tv, I hope you're enjoying this as well too. If you are a subscriber to either channel, drop a comment, tell me what you think. 3A looks like this. Leon Bluestem playing host to Central Heights and Bluestem 40, Central Heights 6. We already gave you the score on Chanute and Nemaha Central, so there's no need for that. Christ Prep Academy traveled to Caney Valley and comes away with 41-8 victory. No score on Cimarron and Lakin. Council Grove 28, Raleigh County 26. Close one there. Douglas 20, Haven 31. Eureka traveled to Holcomb, comes away with a 34-6 victory. Galena traveled to Fredonia and they come away happy with a 24-12 victory. Garden Plain traveled into Belle Plaine and silenced the home crowd with the score of 46-7. Hillsboro traveled to Halstead and they walk out with a 22-13 victory. However, Kingman wasn't so fortunate as they traveled to southeast of Saline, defending 2A champs. And there's a reason they are defending 2A champs. They took care of home and boat raced Kingman by the score of 58-6. Russell playing at home hosted Larned 52-0. Ellsworth, another home team, putting up big numbers while limiting their opponents. They knock off Lions by the score of 50-3. No score on Norton in Minneapolis. Osage City went to West Franklin, and this was not pretty. Final score 74-0 in favor of Osage City. Oskaloosa traveled to Atchison County and limped away with a 43-14 loss. Phillipsburg traveled to Beloit and they leave happy with a 40-28 victory. Riverton traveled to Cherryville and they overcome them by 10 by the score of 37-27. Sabetha traveled to Royal Valley and blanked them by the score of 16-0. Hoisington hosted Southwestern Heights 72-0. And Silver Lake hosting St. Mary's picks up the victory by the score of 21-6. Before I get into where am I at? I'm doing 2A right now. Before I get into 1A, and if you notice the lopsided scores, and you heard me talking with Coach Matt Fowler, because they do have what's called a mercy rule in 8-man. In 11-man, they have the running clock. But when you see some of these scores, a lot of these shutouts and near shutouts, and 70 plus scores to 0, 70 plus scores to 3. And I know the coaches, they empty their bench. They let the second team come in, third team, probably JV. And you don't tell these players not to score. And oftentimes, I know some people say, well, where's the sportsmanship in that? I put that on the association. If you have a running clock in 8-man, and I'm pretty sure all of this is governed by Acacia, don't you think maybe that there should be a mercy rule in 11-man? And I'm pretty sure I'll get some pushback. Will be some who probably agree. Probably those who agree are probably ones who watch their team suffer these one-sided losses. I don't know. Then again, some of you whose team are the ones responsible for administering some of these lopsided losses, you're probably thinking maybe there does need to be a mercy rule. I want to know, what side of the fence are you on? Should there be a mercy rule in 11-man as well as there is in 8-man? And I'm pretty sure most likely in 6-man. I want to know your thoughts. Drop comments. Uh, when this podcast goes up, if you're on Spotify, drop some comments in the comment section. I want your feedback. That's going to be my poll question. Should there be and should there be a mercy rule in 11-man football like there is in 8-man? Because I got wind of this as I was watching a game not too long ago. It was last Saturday, I believe. It was a college game. We know the college game, they play 15-minute quarters. Well, the score in that game was 69-0 at half. Right. Yeah, Idaho State against Lincoln University out of California. And I guess the officials and the coaches got together and they agreed to 8-minute quarters in the second half. Final score still ended up being 90-0. The fact that I watched that game when there were other games of probably better interest on to watch, but I watched this game. So tell me if you agree with me on the fact that there should be a mercy rule to avoid such blowout. Because I'm not blaming the teams that are responsible for administering these blowouts. But there is a morale issue because I think El Dorado, I'm gonna use them, a team that has yet to score a point. I still think this is playing on their mental psyche. I don't know. I'm not around them. I haven't talked to no one from there. And I don't want to deem that team as that bad, but to go 4 games into the season and to yet score a point, you wonder just how much that plays on their psyche. You go back to the beginning of the season when they lost that game in the fashion that they lost it to Andale by the score of 104-0. Is it a carryover? Is it a hangover? And whoever's watching, if you have any history, at least Kansas history, I would like to know what is the longest drought for a team to go without scoring points in the season. Anyway, back to scoreboard show. We're looking at 1A. We're getting close to the end, y'all, believe it or not. In 1A, Centralia traveled to Donovan West and shut out the home team by the score of 30-0. Troy held serve on home court, beating Horton by the score of 38-14. Jackson Heights traveled to McLeod and come away with a 55-8 victory. No score on Jayhawk Land and Erie. Marion knocks off Sedgwick on their home field by the score of 42-8. Riverside hosting Myra Hill Mount Academy. Riverside 47, Academy 0. Medicine Lodge 28, Conway Springs 13. Mission Valley 21, Kyle Paravel 7. No score on Mound Ridge Harrington. Oakley traveled to Syracuse, come away with 21-12 victory. OP, that's right, OLPE, OP beats Wabansi by the score of 35-7. Onaga comes away with a victory on the road at Valley Falls by the score of 32-6. Pleasant Ridge 12, Jefferson North 50. Republic County 50, Bennington 0. Rossville 69, Maranatha Academy 0. See, that's those scores I'm telling you about right there. South, no, Smith Center 34, Plainville 16. South Sumner County traveled to Hutchinson Trinity 48, South Sumner 7. St. Mary's Cogan, a traditional power school, 63 traveled to Pleasanton 7. That's right, 63-7. No score on Stanton County and Winnetka, Oklahoma. Sterling traveled to Ellenwood and comes out with a 43-8 victory. Valley Heights loses to Sacred Heart by the score of 26-16. And Whitewater Remington goes on the road and limps out with a 54-0 loss at the hands of Inman. That wraps up 1A. Now, for 8-man Division 1, let's take a look. Canton Galva traveled to El Saline, final score of 46-0 in favor of El Saline. Cedar Road Dexter comes away with a 6-point victory at Sedan, 28-20. Central Burden falls to Northeast Arma, which is right outside Pittsburgh, Kansas, by the score of 26-20. Central Plains picks up victory on the road at Solomon by the score of 54-6. Flint Hills traveled to Northern Heights and comes away with a 58-14 victory. Hill City traveled to Atwood, Rollins County, and they come away with a 58-20 victory. Look like the road teams are on the road here because Hoxie Also, likewise with Stockton by the score of 60-14, and more victories for the road team as Kinsley drops a 70 spot on Elkhart by the score of 70-20. Kiowa County breaks the string of home teams as they were humbled by South Central 58-6. Ellis taking care of home, beating the Cross 44-32. Clifton Clyde playing host to Lakeside Downs blanks them by the score of 46-0. Waukene Trago outduels Leoti Wichita County by the score of 56-46. Lincoln travels to Washington County and they have a happy bus ride home with a 56-6 victory. Linden, another road victory right here. We're getting ready to start the string of road victories. Here we go. Linden 68, Chase County 18. Madison 46, Yates Center 0. Meade 48, Sublette 40. Of course, score I gave you earlier, I was talking to the coach. Oswego 49, West Elk 0. Quinter 34, Nest City 18. Spearville 66, South Gray 40. Of course, St. Francis had to break the mold because they went into Oberlin, Decatur County and limped out with a 38-28 defeat. Sylvan Lucas United went on the road to Mankato Rock Hills and they come away with a 58-6 victory. And Pratt Skyline taking care of home, beating Udall by the score 46-0. And that was 8-man Division 1. Now we give you 8-man Division 2 scores. Thursday's game, Rural Vista 52, Wakefield 0. Multi-time champs, I believe 4-time defending state champs in 8-man Division 2, Axtell 54 win to Blue Valley Randolph, left them with 8 points. Final score 54-8. Burlingame 48, the home team. Century Lost Springs 0. No score on Colony Crest and St. Paul. Mineola at home squeaks out a 42-40 victory over Cunningham. Hutchinson Central Christian take care of home, knocking off Fairfield 50-0. Hanover traveled to Frankfort 50-0 final score in favor of Hanover. Lebo boat races Hartford on their home field by the score of 46-0. Lynn squeaks out a 6-point victory over Thunder Ridge by the score of 36-30. Logan Palco shuts out Wheatland Grinnell on their home field by the score of 50-0. I just believe that these 50-0 scores is a product of the mercy rule. Argonia Attica taking care of home cruises past Norwich by the score of 30-6. Beloit St. John Tipton taking care of home as well. Gets the win over Osborne 58-24. No score on Otis Bison versus Ashland Buckland. Victoria taking care of home 54-0 victory over Pretty Prairie. Reno County Homeschool taking their high octane show on the road to Marmarton Valley. Comes away with a 93-38 victory. Tribune Greeley County 34 on their home turf against Satanta 20. Sharon Springs Wallace County goes in and picks up a 24-12 victory over Dighton. Hodgman County gave their home fans something to be happy about as they come away with a 52-6 victory over St. John. Stafford traveled to Maxville and smacked Maxville around on their home field by the score of 56-6. And Pike Valley gets an 8-point victory over Waverly by the score of 28-20. That concludes 8-man Division II. What am I going to do next? I'm going to give you 6-man. That's right. We do play 6-man right here in the state of Kansas. Thursday's game saw Weston travel to Western Plains Healy, and Weston gets back on the bus happy with a 56-0 victory. Chitopa traveled to South Coffee County and came away with a 33-20 victory. And I'm pretty sure this next game was very entertaining, on the edge of your seat game, as Cunningham traveled to Mineola, and Mineola comes away with a 42-40 victory, a close one right there. Golden Plains traveled to Tri Plains Brewster just to shut them out on their home field, 49-0. Maurice Des Singers Valley traveled to Altoona Midway and came away with a 54-6 victory. South Barber welcomed in Moscow, but I'm pretty sure Moscow didn't feel too comfortable as South Barber comes away with a 50-0 victory. Chelan hosted Northern Valley, and they were not the gracious host as they get the 64-15 victory. No score on Otis Bison, Ashland Buckland. I think I've already said that. Peabody Burns, 58. Pawnee Heights, 16. No score for Rolla against Ingalls, and no score for Tescott at Chase. And that right there will conclude the scoreboard show. Hope you have enjoyed today's The Ride on the A Train video podcast as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Hope you were able to get out and enjoy some games and continue to support these young student athletes. I hope to, in the future, have some guests lined up just like I did today. I was having some audio issues, but we made it through, and hopefully you enjoyed the interview with Coach Matt Fowler. Like I say, this will be podcasted. You will be able to check out the podcast. It will be on iHeart, Spotify, the Spreaker app. Also, I do believe on Amazon Music. So wherever you want to listen at it out, like I say, feel free to leave your comments if you're watching the live stream. Comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share, all the above. Well, it is time for me to get out of here. I've taken up an hour and almost 20 minutes of your time that you won't be able to get back, but I hope it was well worth it. Want to let you know before I get out of here, if I can, let you know that this show is
by Riverside.
powered by
Riverside FM. Powered
by Riverside FM. So, with that being said, until next time, take care of yourself.